watch this video. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for new punk rock videos every week and tap the bell to get notified when new videos drop. My name is Erin Micklow, and I'm here with Mr. Sammy McBride from FANG. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm good. We're here at Crash Festival up in the Bay Area. A lot of shows going on tonight, a lot of bands.
A lot of bands,
Yeah.
a lot of great bands.
Yeah, pretty aggressive pit. Almost got hurt in there trying to film.
This one goes out to all the anarchists and outlaws, all the dope fiends, all the revolutionaries and rebels. Just remember, if you're claiming to live outside of society, you don't get a call the cops. That's right, you don't get it good fucking way.
Is known. It's really iconic because it influenced a lot of bands. There's Metallica, Green Day, Butthole Surfers, Nirvana have all covered your band. Can you talk about the East Bay punk scene and kind of how it changed from then until now? Because FANG started in the early 80s.
I mean, I think a lot of scenes have undergone a lot of changes over the years, some good and some bad. I think that the scene back early in the 80s when we first started was very small.
Yeah.
You know, and also I think that back then, if you spiked your hair up like that, if you had your ear pierced, you knew you were going to be a target.
Yeah.
And so it was a decision. You decided you were going to be part of the scene. It was a decision that wasn't taken lightly.
Yeah.
You know, because it was definitely, you put your ass on the line, so to speak, you know, and
Sure.
so I mean, I think that's something that has changed somewhat. Like I said, somewhat good, somewhat bad. I think we had each other's backs back then a little more than now. And also, I think the scene has genre'd itself to death. You know, that what was considered punk rock in 1980 crossed so many boundaries.
Yeah.
And now, you know, it's everything is like it's one genre or another or a subgenre, and I don't think that's done us any favors as far as keeping us together.
Yeah.
as you know, a group.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are so many different genres of punk rock now, and I feel like, you know, maybe back then it wasn't. It was just punk rock or not.
Yeah.
And now it's like there's like ska punk and street punk and then crust punk and then pop punk and like
Absolutely. And I don't think and you used to go to a show and you could see 6-10 different bands that were all across the board.
Yeah.
And I think it's that gave you a lot more inspiration and opened you up to a lot more possibilities, where now sometimes I think you go to a show and you see 6 bands that are all in that same subgenre, and if you're a musician or if you play music or even just as a spectator, it narrows the possibilities, you know, and I think that's not doing us any favors. I think it's much better for us to have, you know, open minds, be influenced by many different things, and see as many possibilities as we can.
For sure. Well, so, you know, I want to, aside from the band, I want to talk about the other serious stuff of the person that you used to be versus the person you are now, because even for me coming into this interview, I had asked a friend that lives up here in the Bay. I was like, oh, you know, like, which band's on the bill do you think I should interview? And he literally said, stay away from FANG. And I said, well, why? Like, what's the thing? And so he's like, just Google it. And I Googled it.
Yeah.
And I found an LA Weekly article, and I really liked what it said about, you know, let's just not sugarcoat it. Let's call the elephant out in the room.
Yeah.
You killed your girlfriend
Yeah.
back in the day
Yeah.
because you were on drugs.
Yeah.
And it's not making light of it, saying that it wasn't wrong, that it wasn't bad, but the fact that you have this amazing redemption story was why I was like, oh, I have to speak to this person because your story is so special and unique. Like, can we talk more about that, of your journey?
I mean, I talk about it a lot, obviously, because that's, like you said, the elephant in the room, if not. And I don't think, I did a horrible, horrible thing. I can't ever take that back.
Yeah.
And, but what I can do, since I'm still here, I can still reach out to other people. I can still try and help other people not make the mistakes that I've made.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't ever believe that the scales will be equal. I will never forgive myself for what I've done.
Yeah.
But I think it's endemic of me. It's important that I have to actually try and help other people to not make the mistakes that I made, or if they're coming from places that I came from, if they're coming from years in the penitentiary, if they're coming from hardcore drug addiction, that they know that people who've done horrible things, have been horrible places, that there is a way out.
Yeah.
That they can get to the other side of that.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, they get caught up in the system, and they can't ever see a way out of that.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, it definitely is a thing. I went through some trouble in my teens, and I got in the system. It wasn't bad. I was not incarcerated, but I was held. I was detained for like overnight, couple nights. And I remember my mother saying that to me. She's like, you don't want to get in the system because some people don't ever get out. Like you said, it's you get stuck there. And listening to the Dopey podcast where you were a guest on it, I really liked what you said. First, I liked what you said about you have to bare your soul to recover. It's part of the recovery. Yeah. And I love that, how you're so open about it. You're not trying to brush it under the rug. You're owning it, that this is something I did. And that's such a huge part of moving forward. Yeah,
I think you have to take responsibility, absolutely, if you're going to move forward in life. You've got to take responsibility for what you've done. And I think too, it's important, at least for me, that I take responsibility. It's important for me that I do what I can to help others.
Of course.
That is such a crucial part of finding some sort of road beyond beyond prison, beyond drug addiction.
Moment when you were incarcerated, where you had a conjugal visit with your wife. You got married when you were in prison.
That's right.
And you had that visit, and it was like a glimpse of what your life could have been. It pulled you out of that loop of, I'm just going to be here forever.
Right. No, that's absolutely what happened. You did your homework. But, and I feel very, very lucky that I had that aha moment. I know that there's so many systemic problems in the United States today.
Yeah.
One is mass incarceration, and there are very little programs. The system is set up to keep people, especially people of color, incarcerated, and so there are programs like that, but if it hadn't been for the Conjugal Visit program, chances are I would still be in prison today.
Yeah.
If I hadn't had that kind of an opportunity.
The craziest part of that, because obviously, maybe also a lot of other people out there that have never experienced incarceration, when you talked about that it was like they gave you like a legit little apartment for your conjugal visits, and she's like cooking you dinner, and I was like, because if you're not knowledgeable about it, my perception was like what television and movies make out to be is you get a room and you get to have sex with each other and then that's it.
And that's not what the Conjugal Visit. I mean, I think the idea of it is it's very, it's trying to give people an idea of what some normalcy is that are incarcerated, to remind them that okay, there is life. You know, that I mean, you do years in prison and you get institutionalized, and even though I had a date, like I wasn't sentenced to life in prison, after a few years, that becomes a concept. It's not even reality anymore. What's reality is the walls. What's reality is the violence. What's reality is, the way that the things are in there. You know? And so you get so institutionalized, you can't even imagine what that you could get out, that there is a life beyond the walls.
Because it's something that you're waiting and waiting and waiting for, but you're in this hamster wheel of a life that's not a life.
Yes, well, it's a life, but it's not living. It's I mean, it's a very hard life, And
so can you share some of your stories from that time, aside from what you shared on the Dopey podcast about like, hey, I need your help with something and we're going to carve this guy's tattoo off of him.
We don't have to go into all the horror stories.
I mean, that's not funny.
You could listen to the Dopey podcast, I guess, for some of the horror stories. It's, there's, prison is, and I don't know, I've only been in prison in California. I know that California particularly has got some pretty violent prisons. And so when you go into prison, you get tested. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like right from the gate. I first went to San Quentin. I was in San Quentin for a while, and I knew a bunch of guys when I got to San Quentin. So I wasn't really tested in San Quentin, but I was transferred to Soledad. And at that time, there was the central yard was a level 4 yard. And, I start walking down the tier, and there's an older, big, white guy, and he started fucking with me. Yeah. And that's the way they test you, And so he was sex playing me and threatening me. And so I went to my cellie who'd been down a while, and I'm like, look, I need a piece, because if I don't handle this now, then I'm just going to end up being a victim for the rest of my term, Yeah. And so he's like, okay, and you got me a piece of knife, and so I told this guy, I'm like, okay, I'll fuck you, but you got to meet me in the shower. That was sex playing me. He's like, okay. So he thought he was going to fuck me in the shower. So I went down to the shower, and I had a knife folded up in a towel, and I'm like, okay, strip down. And he stripped down, and once he dropped it, then I grabbed the knife out of the towel and I stabbed him.
Oh my God.
He jumped back, and I went to stab him again. He's like, no, it's good. We're cool. And he wrapped himself in his towel and he got out of there.
Yeah.
That was being tested. The irony is that guy, I wouldn't say we became friends, but the
he tried to fuck you, you stabbed him,
and then we were all best buddies on the yard. It wasn't like that. But the weird irony and sick part about prison is later on, when there was a big issue on the yard, like that guy had my back, you know, and but the thing is that if you can't, it is such a horrendous place. If you can't go to those lengths, then the reality is so brutal. Yeah. For someone in that situation, like if you're not ready to make that kind of a commitment, it's a horrible place anyway. But when you get tested, if you fail in that situation, it's brutal.
Of course.
It's just horrible.
Yeah. I mean, because it's it seems like it's all about who's the alpha dog and asserting each other, of who's in charge.
Incarceration, the systemic problems in prison, the guards realize it's 100 to 1.
Yeah.
That it's we all dress in blue in prison. The guards all dress in green.
Yeah.
They realize if the situation turns from blue to green instead of from black to white, that they're in trouble. And so they constantly are creating situations to keep the races in prison fighting with each other.
Yeah.
They know that if we're not fighting with each other, if we united in prison against the guards, then the convicts would be running the prisons.
Yeah.
And that's the way it used to be, from my understanding, a long time ago, where the convicts ran the prisons. But just like in society now, if they keep us fighting each other, then we're not really looking at the real fucking problems.
Yeah.
We're not really trying to find the real solutions. And in a small way, it's the same way as it is in a bigger way in America. They keep us fighting with each other so we don't turn around and go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like what's really fucking going on here? It's like there's billionaires who have more money than, and then there are people that are starving. It's like, how does that fucking make sense?
Of course.
They keep us fighting each other so they don't, because they know if we turn on them, they'll lose,
Yeah. Well, so, with what you went through, can you talk about, the stigmas that you face now? Like, I know that I read in that LA Weekly article that sometimes, some shows don't want to book you, just like what I went through when my friend is like, nice person, but don't interview them. Like, can you talk about the stigmas that you face?
I mean, it's been going on so long now, it's just par for the course. I think that, and I get it. It's like I totally understand it. I don't. I'm totally in acceptance around it. I am just glad that there are some people that will book us. That there are some people that believe in second chances, that believe in some forms of redemption, that it's important. For me, we're having a dialogue around things. We're getting a deeper understanding. If someone's got a problem with me, I'd much rather it's like, let's sit down and talk about it.
Let's have a conversation.
Let's have a conversation.
Can we fix this?
Just let's get a deeper understanding, of things, because I think, unfortunately, if you just draw a line, if you just shut down, if you just put up a wall, then you'll never get to a better understanding of human nature and people,
Absolutely.
So,
I fully agree with that, is that look at all sides of the coin before you pass a judgment on somebody. Because it's like, is your plate clean? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, of course we all have degrees of bad things that we've done, but it's like, well, who is somebody else to judge somebody that's trying to do better?
And it is unfortunate to me that more people aren't willing, to sit down and talk about it. Even to tell me, I think you're fucked up for what you did. I'm like, okay, well,
that's
you're
fair.
Not alone. I think I'm fucked up for what I did too.
One thought that came into my mind was there ever a time that the guilt became so much that you considered taking your own life because you couldn't deal with it?
That's an interesting question. When I first got busted, I was on the run for a while, and I was arrested in Anchorage, Alaska.
Yeah.
And I ended up in the hole, and at that point I decided I'm done.
Yeah.
Like I can't deal with this anymore.
Yeah.
And I was going to kill myself. I obviously didn't do that.
Yeah.
And there are times when I will feel guilt for the rest of my life. I should feel guilt for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Have I thought about killing myself? Not in a long time, but I think that it's how do you live with what you've done? I think you do what you can to have some acceptance around it. You know, like I talked about in the Dopey podcast Ghosts.
Yeah.
You know, and they're always there. You know.
Yeah, of course.
And sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder. So for me, I think if I'm constantly in a state of working to, in some way or another, help other people, then that takes suicide off the table.
A sober living house, correct?
Yeah, and I had a sober living house for many years.
Yeah.
We closed a couple years ago. Currently, I work volunteer at a place in Tucson, because I live in Tucson now, that works with the indigenous population with drug and alcohol abuse.
Yeah,
And
because that's a
so-
big thing in that I've spoken to some indigenous people and they're just like, you know, the oppression of what they went through was so much that they turned to substances.
And I mean, I can't even pretend to know what it's like to grow up on places like the Res.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know, the trauma that has been inflicted upon the indigenous population in the United States since white people came here is so horrific.
Yeah.
That, you know, I can't even fathom what it's like to grow up like that, you know. And it's a hard population to get clean, to get sober.
Yeah.
You know, because you're fighting through generations and generations of trauma.
Of course.
And so I think it's also a really important population to try and find a path out of addiction. You know.
For sure. Well, so shifting back to, you know, music and the band, FANG, can we talk about, you released your last album in 2017. Have you been working on any new music for the band?
We did, after George Floyd was killed by the police in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
We wrote a song called Minneapolis. We're putting out a 7-inch with that and another song with another band, Let It Bleed, on Die Laughing Records. That comes out in a few more months. We did a music video for it. That was part of a whole record that we've been working on.
Yeah.
But it's taken us a lot longer than we thought.
I mean, that's art, you know, things always take a bit longer.
Right. We'd hoped to have recorded in July, and at this point, I don't think we'll have recorded the whole record until sometime early spring, you know. But
Cool.
sometime in 2022, it should come out.
That's awesome. Well, so can we talk about, lastly, how the band reformed? It's kind of reformed a bunch of times. So this time around, how did that go?
Reform. So I don't know. So obviously, you know, there's been many changes over the years in
Yeah.
FANG. I think for after I got sober, after I got clean, I had a new FANG that I put together. I brought some new guys in the table, and it's hard, you know, like the faces have changed somewhat over the years.
Yeah.
Which I think if you go back and listen to the discography of FANG, all our records are very different.
Yeah.
You know, because we've had a number of different players over the years.
Yeah, and they bring their influences to the table.
Absolutely, and I think that can be very positive. You know, I mean, I know that not everybody likes all our records. You know, I don't like necessarily all our records, but I will say that as far as it goes, you know, if you listen to the whole discography, we have a pretty wide variety of music that we put out over the years.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we'll continue to do that. I know that Rise Up, the last record that we did, that had a lot of East Coast hardcore influence. The songs we've been writing for this new record, whenever it comes out, also a lot of like old school East Coast hardcore influence, and that shows in the new music. So I think whatever I'm listening to at the time bleeds through into music, and I think that's fine. I think that's, it's good. I like being able to try different things. I've had a bunch of side project bands that have also, tried different styles of music. It's always been basically in the punk rock vein, but I find, why would you ever want to limit yourself as an artist?
Of course. I mean, you just have to do what feels right for you at the time, and if it's received well, great, and if it's not, then you make another one.
Well, and this is the other thing too, I can't, you can't make, I have to make music that I like.
Yeah.
Because shit that I like, sometimes people like it, sometimes they don't, but I have to like it, like it has to.
You have to sing it.
I have to sing it, and I have to feel it,
Yeah.
and so I think that's, obviously we don't do this for money.
Yeah.
There's
no money in
There is
punk
no
rock.
money in punk rock, at least not at the level that we're on. There's some people that make some money in punk rock, but we're not one of them.
Preach that, because I get it all the time on Instagram. You're just doing it for the money, and it's like, what money?
I don't know. Yeah, there's
What money?
that it costs me more money than we ever make. Absolutely,
I know.
But I do this because I love it.
Same.
Because it's important to me.
Same.
Because I think too, especially like politically right now, what's been going on the last 5 years, if you have a voice, it's important that you use it.
Yeah.
I think that our system has been super fucked up, but I think the radicalization of the white power contingent in America has grown exponentially. It's horrible, and I think that we as hopefully rational people, with anybody with a voice, has got to stand up against that.
For sure.
That it's so important that the systemic racism and sexism in America is such a fucking problem. It's always been a problem.
Yeah.
But I really feel if you've got a voice, you've got to use it.
For sure.
And if you've got a body, you got to put it out there on the line.
Yeah.
That I'm out there, I protest, that to me is just as important as helping other people, because it's another means of helping other people.
For sure.
And I think it's so important, because things are so screwed up right now.
Yeah.
They've been screwed up for a long, long, long time.
Yeah.
But it seems like the polarization of the U.S. right now is at a tipping point, and I think everybody who's got any kind of a voice needs to use that now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to close with that and say thank you so much for taking the time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This is Sammy Town from FANG, and you're watching Last Rockers TV.